President Biden says he will deliver a message to Russian President Vladimir Putin over the massive global ransomware attack believed to have originated from inside Russia. Mr. Biden has given little detail about what he would say to his Russian counterpart, but he emphasized that the U.S. has the right to respond accordingly. Miami-based software firm Kaseya was targeted this weekend. Russian hackers allegedly used the company to infiltrate around 800 to 1,500 clients, most of them small businesses. And in May, the largest pipeline operator in the U.S. paid nearly $5 million in cryptocurrency to ransomware hackers, and the world's largest meat supplier, JBS, paid $11 million. For more on this recent wave of attacks, I'm joined by Maurice Turner. Maurice is a cybersecurity fellow at the Alliance for Securing Democracy. Welcome, Maurice. So there are still a lot of unknowns here. According to the Washington Post, REvil, the Russia-based group responsible for this latest attack, exploited a computer bug that had never been used and was unknown to top cybersecurity experts. So we're wondering, is this the beginning of a more pervasive problem, Maurice? Do you expect bigger ransomware attacks will be happening in the future?
Certainly. Ransomware is becoming easier and easier for criminals to use to make a steady stream of revenue. And that's really what it comes down to. We're seeing the average ransomware payment now nearing $1 million. That's very attractive even for unsophisticated criminals.
Well, it also appears that international norms are really insufficient and individual defense options are really limited in terms of thwarting these types of attacks. How do you believe that we make countries like Russia hold these groups within their countries, even if they're not government affiliated per se, that they are still held accountable?
Well, a collective effort is really the best way to go about it. Despite warnings and pressure that President Biden and our NATO allies have communicated to these criminals and to Russia, it seems that the criminals are not deterred at all. They're, in fact, maybe even emboldened to go after larger targets like critical infrastructure sectors and to demand even larger ransoms from these targets. Now, individuals can do their best to stay protected themselves by updating their software and not falling for those phishing emails. But again, if the vulnerabilities are unknown, that means that the actual developers of the software don't know that they should be fixing these bugs that are apparently being used by these criminals.
I want to follow up with that because most at-risk computer systems are privately run. But when we were talking about a deterrence, only the government really has the authority to take offensive measures against cyber criminals. So along those lines, I'm wondering if our deterrence system is really antiquated. What do you believe needs to change, particularly as the incentives become increasingly lucrative as companies are paying out these multi-million-dollar ransom to these online hackers, that the incentive becomes for more, it encourages more attacks rather than fewer?
Certainly, we need a different deterrent strategy. Our current strategy simply is not working. We're not hearing about ransomware going away or major busts of ransomware gangs. We're hearing about increases in ransomware, people making more and more money illegally by collecting these ransoms. And so it really is up to the government, both the U.S. government as well as our allies, to come together and show that this is not a place where we're willing to give ground to let criminals dig in, make money, and disrupt our everyday lives. You know, we've seen how ransomware has gone from being a minor annoyance where people are being asked individually to pay ransoms of hundreds of dollars in credit cards or gift cards to now it's millions of dollars in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Monero that are being transferred through these networks, and it's very difficult for law enforcement to track them down. And the criminals know that at the end of the day, they're not very likely to be captured by law enforcement. And even if they are identified by U.S. law enforcement, if they're in Russia, they know that the Russian government is not going to help the U.S. federal agencies in bringing them back to U.S. shores so they can be prosecuted.
So then, Maurice, what needs to change? What needs to be done either by private individuals or by governments to stop this?
Well, one potential solution that seems to come back again and again is this idea of hacking back or allowing private organizations or individuals to actually go on the offensive. Now, unfortunately, that's strictly the realm of governments to be able to have an offensive strategy like that. But I think that there is hope. You know, the recently introduced Daines White House bill in the Senate is something that would study the ability for companies to hack back. Now, I don't think it's a good idea to actually allow companies to do that, but I think that different agencies in the federal government need to be on the record about what it means to have private agencies or organizations hack back. Ultimately, see that as a bad idea and use that as leverage to drive a new deterrent strategy.
Hacking the hackers. All right, Maurice Turner, thank you so much.
Thank you.